Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Hello and welcome to the main event, the history of the Champions League. We have reached the middle of 2006-2007. Must be 40 odd episodes deep by now. I'm Martyn, your host, as always, and I'm joined, as always, by my same two time travellers, Adam Thornton. Good evening, Adamski.
Good evening. Yeah, there's a bit of what's the word? A bit of a kind of obviousness about this. This is the first time I think that everyone from pot 1 and pot 2 in the draws qualifies for the knockout. So feels like there's maybe a lack of surprise here. But hopefully, as we dig into it, I'm sure we can find one or two.
Yeah, I think that did come through from last week's group chat. David Edgar, how are we doing?
Oh, good. And Adam's right. You know, in a quieter year, this represents a shift because from now on, this is a couple of years later. I remember the 16 top-seeded teams. Basically, we played 50-odd matches just to stop Tottenham going into that. that was why we did it. But yeah, it will become because money is now really starting to become such an enormous factor in this. And the days just a couple of years before where a Porto could build a great team, get a tailwind behind them and go all the way are going into it almost feels like another era already.
Let's start in the last 16 with the finalists from Paris, only a few months before, because they are both going to struggle. Didn't look that way, Adam, as Barcelona played Liverpool off to a flyer and a real flyer. You watch that game back, you can feel the noise at the Nou Camp. It just looked like one of those nights. Deco, very good in the air. Not something we particularly associate with them. A superb goal. It puts them ahead. Liverpool look a bit of a shambles, really, and it looks like that Barcelona are going to get that second. And we've seen British teams, English teams, but then before and since utterly crumble there. 3-0 down at half time, just completely blitzed. It looked like it could be one of those nights. Steven Gerrard then pings in a free kick to the back post that Bellamy misheaders. But there's maybe just scope that Liverpool actually can get out. And they do equalise in the strangest kind of fashion possible, really. That Bellamy effort that I don't think it. I think if you've got Hawkeye or whatever, I don't think that ball's over the line. Thankfully, the goalkeeper just pushes it straight out to Kuyt to make sure that it's definitely a goal, which I thought was very generous. And then obviously Liverpool take the lead in the second half with John Anarisa and value for it in the end, Adam, that for all that noise and all that fervour, once Liverpool punched back, Barcelona didn't really have much.
They didn't. And I think we said, look, Barcelona have done well under Rijkaard over the last couple of years. They've won the title twice. They won the competition we're speaking about last season. Not having a great year this year in comparison, but this is still end of February and only one team has beaten them in the Copa del Rey. They've unbeaten in La Liga at home and obviously in the Champions League as well. And Liverpool were ruthless about it. I think there's a couple of little tactical points in this game that were mentioned. Rijkaard takes off Thiago Motta and Xavi. And kind of loses the middle. David mentioned there, Liverpool are really starting to become a midfield, if that makes sense, or starting to have a midfield. I think would be the right words. Sissoko, Xavi Alonso, in this game are terrific. Mascherano is obviously on the bench at this point, having just signed. As David again alluded to last week. So it's an interesting setup, but I think Barcelona don't help themselves particularly here. And maybe it is just one of those things that they feel like they've done enough If you like, Deco gets that early goal and they think they can just coast it out here, but they're sort of maybe forgetting about Liverpool and their never say die spirit. I think Benitez, you have to say, gets his tactics spot on. And this one, Sissoko was good. Dirk Kuyt, always a threat, or certainly always gives you something to worry about. There's a counter pressing wasn't really invented at this point, but he was the master at it before it was even really something, just constantly in their faces. So yeah, I think it was a really important win for Liverpool, and then obviously coming back to Anfield, it wouldn't be Liverpool in Europe without there being a bit of jeopardy, shall we say, in the game. And when Good Johnson scores that goal with 15 minutes to go, I think you're thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? But they see it out and eventually get through on away goals. But yeah, it was an interesting one. I watched a good bit of that Camp Nou game. And yeah, I think the one thing I think that would come out for me here is something that we maybe trailed before. They're maybe just missing cutting edge Liverpool. I know they scored 2 goals, but Dirk Kuyt up front on his own with Gerrard off him, and then you've got Bellamy on one flank and Steve Finnan on the other flank. In this game, they're missing a little bit here, which Torres will obviously bring coming through. But yeah, good win overall for Liverpool, and it is a shock, I think, for Barcelona to be going out at this stage. Absolutely.
Davey, Bellamy's a foil, man, and he's a really, really good kind of second striker, very clever, very intelligent. But Adam's right; they are missing that kind of focal point. Barcelona, Good Johnson does something at Anfield that he couldn't do 2 years before, and score in that semi-final. But even watching it back, there isn't this tidal wave of pressure. Liverpool see it out quite deservedly, really, and they've already rattled the woodwork a couple of times. And Barcelona they've reached that high, maybe, and just again this natural dissipation, this natural hunger that erodes even just for a season or so.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't win the league this year. Now, Barcelona fans could point to the fact that it wasn't even goal difference. It's significantly better goal difference than a fairly stodgy Real Madrid side under Fabio Capello. But they'd lost the head-to-head because they lost in the Bernabeu and drew at the Camp Nou. So, I mean, they could point to that, but everything looks a slog this year, Martin, rather than the year before where they were crest of a wave, just playing this bubbly football and storming all over the place. It's not like that this year, and it is natural. We see it so often where a team goes and achieves the ultimate, and then the next year's not unsuccessful. They're not terrible, but they're not wildly successful. I mean, Manchester City, I suppose, is a good example after the treble winning year. They won the league, but it wasn't done with any kind of great sense of joyousness that you saw the year before, where everything just seemed to be on and exciting and open and available. And yeah, I think there does come a bit of time where you need to readjust, and that's what this Barcelona side do. In terms of the second game, and remember, by the way, that first game remember the reports in the press that Bellamy had hit Risa with a golf club, so it was the famous celebration in the Nou Camp. This Liverpool team under this manager is ideally suited to go, nope, right? We are shutting up shop here. You're not getting through. And you're right. They, with aplomb, hold off this Barcelona team at arm's length. And this is not, Pepe Reina is not leaping about making save after save, and it's like, it's just one of those nights Barca can't score. They're not creating. Liverpool they suffocate them. They shut the game down. And over the 2 legs, this is not a steal, right? You're right, the first half, the Camp Nou. But after that, Liverpool more than matched them in 3 halves. So, yeah, I think this was just a side that had been running full out, got to where it wanted to go, stopped, and then had a little bit of bother just starting up again.
Arsenal, after a great knockout run, it has to be said, in the previous season on the way to Paris. They go to Eindhoven, they have most of the ball, they have most of the play, they look impotent as all hell, and Eindhoven get one goal, which will prove very important in the end. Edison Mendes just after an hour. It's a nice strike, but they just look so meh and so blah, and it just doesn't quite happen. Back to the Emirates, they do go ahead. This is a very entertaining game, by the way. A lot of chances at both ends. PSV under Ronald Koeman, who just appears to bump along club by club every season to just do a nice wee job and then pop off somewhere else. Fortunate slightly, poor Alex, the Brazilian centre half, was in the wrong place at the wrong time to divert the ball in. Arsenal, right, go back level on the tie. They're at home. This new stadium, it's jumping. I mean, it looks buoyant. What a header by Alex at the other end, not too long after that. Not the best marking, it must be said, but it's a great corner. It's a great execution. He's moved into space. He has thundered that home, and they're done. They're absolutely done. And Davey, this is a big shock.
It was huge. I remember watching this game, and this was a huge shock. And it was one of those games where, as a neutral, and the television coverage was just, right, Arsenal are going to turn this round. Arsenal are going to beat them. And then the game's dragging on. And, as you say, the noise, but then that slight edge starts to come in. But then Alex scores in the wrong net to give Arsenal the lead. And at that point, you're just waiting. Arsenal are going to go and probably now do this by 3 or 4, and they don't. When that header went in, it's one of those silences in a football ground, isn't it? Where the whole place, the PSV fans are just stunned, and they take a kind of split second before they react, and everyone else knows that's it, done now.
7 minutes to go. They need 2 goals.
And you need 2 goals, and you haven't looked at scoring them pretty much all night, to be honest. You said it at the start there. This is a very strangely blunt Arsenal side. When you look at the starting lineup that night and the amount of attacking players that are on there and that are used that night, he's got Fabregas, Danielson, Alexander Hleb, Julio Baptista, Thierry Henry comes on, Adebayor is playing. You sort of think, why is it so? Why is it so stodgy? Because they're just not, they're just being shut down. And I think this goes back to something Adam said last week. When you want to play a certain way and it isn't working, you kind of have to try something different. But at 1-0, they think they're through. I mean, they absolutely think they've done enough. And they haven't. And the thing is, at 1-0 up, that was just extra time. They weren't going to get, they wasn't going to go through. But I don't know if it was complacency, because, as I say, I don't think anybody gave PSV a chance. Even that just looked like one of those, first legs that can happen. The team, they welcomed the huge team and they beat them and the place is going nuts. But it's not going to be enough. They're going to take them back to their own stadium and hump them. And it just does not happen. And this is the first, Martin, I can remember articles about, they'd have won that at Highbury. And I'm not sure that that's true, by the way, because the record at Highbury wasn't exactly fabulous. But this was the first where I can remember people kind of writing about, they missed the crowd being right in on them. It wasn't that. It was that the team struggled to break them down.
Okay, let's kick off. We are conscious time. Poor Adam is on a deadline tonight. Manchester United won in Lille. Rangnick scored late, and they followed that up with another 1-0. Henrik Larsson scoring late-ish. Seems very rudimentary and just professional job, I suppose, against Lille. Celtic drew Milan 0-0 at home, and quite exciting, if you're into that kind of thing, game in the San Siro, 0-0 still, all still to play for. Celtic certainly not disgracing themselves. We spoke last week, as we have quite often, about the record away from home. Into extra time, obviously a Celtic goal makes life doubly hard, Adam, and then Kaká picks the ball up and he's allowed to run for some reason. Tired legs, of course. But it's just the start of extra time. It's not as if it's been sapped. They've had that refresh. Celtic just didn't restart really. So in the third minute of extra time, he just runs straight through and does what he was doing at that time.
Yeah, terrific goal, and I think probably well deserved. Obviously, we're going to say that anyway, but yeah, I think like you said, it's not that far into extra time, but it is one of those that this is the level, isn't it? Like this is what we talk about when we in these games, and it's maybe something that Arsenal have now moved away from. To go back to that, see if we can wring any more of that out of that example. They're moving away from the individualism. They're only really going to have Van Persie as their sort of match winner, whereas before they'd have guys like Henry, etc. But Milan can, in a moment, in a pinch, they're not doing very well. They're maybe not having the best of games. They've got a sort of functional midfield and not really the best defence. Certainly nowhere near the defence that played in the San Siro that night that they've had even a few years before that. You need your guys that you can trust in there. You need Kaká, you need people in Inzaghi that are going to get you out of a hole, are going to score a goal out of nothing. This one is very much not out of nothing, but it's an absolutely terrific goal, and yeah, that's the level. I think so. Yeah, obviously, good to see Milan going through there, and we'll see how they go in the quarterfinals. There's a bit of a great game against a great tie, I should say, against Bayern Munich with lots of goals scored in that one. So yeah, I think the best team go through there, and Kaká for me just sums up where we are just now. I think with this sort of move away, like we're going to see a false nine coming in. So he's the first for me of this sort of modern. I don't know how you would describe Kaká now at this stage. It's like it's almost like a kind of mix between a wide player and a number 10, with lots of running and dribbling and all those sort of things that we take for granted now. But at the time, it was genuinely unique. Yeah, fantastic player.
Chelsea played Porto, again, a team that they know our relationship between managers and players. Davey, it was tight as all hell. 1-1 in Portugal. Shevchenko equalising for Chelsea after Morelos, again, a player that Chelsea will know in the future, and put Porto in front. Quaresma puts Porto ahead at Stamford Bridge after about 15 minutes. There's something not quite right. Again, we talked about this last week. People are not going to say that out loud too much, but Chelsea do find the way back. Arjen Robben scored some wonderful Champions League goals. This is bizarre beyond belief. Porto goalkeeper really not having a good night with that one. And then Michael Ballack steps up with 12 minutes to go as the game's kind of heading to extra time and all of that, to score a goal that Frank Lampard would have scored a couple of years before. And Ballack kind of forcing himself into those positions, just being in the box, having the coolness and the composure to do the biz. Chelsea through, but again, quickly, David, not absolutely sparkling. This isn't like the 4-2 over Bayern Munich, for example.
No, it's not, because it's a tie now. They're expecting to win. The novelty for Chelsea being in the Champions League, which a few years ago, it's worn off. And now this is a game to get through, to get to where they want to be. But it's tricky. Porto, of course, have got the, it's ex-manager, etc. A lot of ex-players facing it, so you want to look your best in front of your ex. But Ballack, the goal, I love this goal, Martyn, because he's just so calm. You said it there. Ballack's main skill was his ability to make the game play at his pace.
Yeah.
And I don't mean by that he was slow. I just mean that he could find seconds where there didn't look to be seconds to play. And this finish is exactly that. Lovely turn and volley, to put it away. But yeah, I do wonder when I look across, was it for some of these favourites in these ties, that a little bit of complacency because it's, Christ, right, we need to get through these. That this is a tie we're going to win, and then we get the other big boys. Because on paper, again, Chelsea should be smashing this Porto team. Somewhere out there currently, as we record, Ricardo Quaresma, I'm sure, is still scoring 40-yarders in some league somewhere, aged 109.
Couple of last 16 still to go then, guys. Roma draw 0-0 with Lyon. Adam, not ideal, of course, but then Lyon haven't scored an away goal. But this is a Lyon team that we've praised. They've looked very good. Go back to France, and Roma win 2-0. Totti, Mancini, not Roberto, the Brazilian. This was another little turn up, actually, because I think Lyon would have had the slight edge in terms of the bookies and expectations going into that second leg, at least, given that Roma hadn't won the first.
Yeah, and Lyon have a great record.
Great
record at home as well. Quite an interesting tactical battle here as well. Spalletti against Thiago. We're starting to see definitely coming through now. I know we've been speaking about it for a while, but any team really now, if you're not going with this midfield three, you're in trouble. Big time. We see Lyon with Diarra, Thiago, Juninho in there, and Roma with Pizarro, De Rossi, Perotta, which is very functional. I think you'd have to say both teams have lots of pace on the wings, a decent defence, as we spoke about Roma. Certainly, Lyon's, for my money, maybe just a little bit better. You've got Abidal, Riviere, Chris, Gregory Coupe, who I liked as well, in there. So yeah, I think it's a tactical win, this one, and fair play to Roma. They do well here to get through. As we said, Lyon are very much having their day in the sun, and they'll be really happy to get through in this one. Roma, it's, as we have trailed for a while. For me, it's a bit of a shame what happens in the next round, because I know we're big fans of Roma here on this show, certainly in this era. You almost don't see it coming, but then you very much do, I think. But yeah, take nothing away from them here getting through this one. I think, yeah, for my money, it's probably a little bit of a shock when you look at the sort of form and where both clubs are in their respective leagues. Yeah.
The final last 16 match is an entertaining one. Inter versus Valencia. Again, two sides that know each other well. Cambiasso puts Inter ahead, and Maicon puts Inter ahead again after the two Davids had replied for Valencia. David Villa, of course, and a 21-year-old David Silva equalised with a few minutes to go, giving Valencia 2-2 draw. And they would go back to the Mestalla and hold those away goals, David, right to the bitter end. Materazzi crushes someone. He goes up for the ball, certainly with power and weight. And there's a bit of argy-bargy. Zlatan's involved. It will shock no one. And then after the final whistle, all hell breaks loose. There's just an absolute old school melee. David Navarro, who has been subbed. He comes on, I think, to enter the fray. Punches Nicolas Bardiso. No, I think he breaks his nose. It's a real sly one. And the sight of interplayer after interplayer trying to haul him down, trying to tackle him, scythe him to the floor as he skips and jumps past them all, running all the way down the tunnel with, I think, a towel or a top or whatever. It's just utter mayhem.
Yes, brilliant, isn't it? The scenes we don't like to see, obviously, and the cameramen, don't like to see it and are so confused that they focus in on it and show you umpteen replays of it. But, this is proper bad-tempered at the end. Inter really fancied a crack at this year, and the Champions League is a bit of a holy grail, for their owners as well, the European Cup, rather. And I think they really fancied themselves to go and do it. But 2-2, the away goals thing, and then Valencia at home are fairly comfortable in letting Inter need to be the ones who are pushing it, and they just can't. They just can't quite get it over the line, despite this wild amount of attacking talent that they have on the field. They're up against a very dogmatic Valencia side, who know that they've got it. You've been to the Mestalla, Martyn. I haven't. It's nuts. It certainly looks at a stadium that is, proper insanity. And then when temper. I know. Don't get me wrong. It's a real coward's trick of a punch, as you say, a total sly one, total schoolyard one. And the Inter players, obviously disappointed anyway, but they lose their shit completely. And this is just spectacular. This is a proper, the phrase that gets used a lot is, nothing really happens, because if they had got their hands on him, then they were going to tear him apart. But it was a big disappointment for Inter. And of course, we know where they're going to go, where the direction is going to go, because I think that the feeling was, this is a real opportunity for us, given we have a stranglehold domestically for reasons that we've discussed in previous shows. We have a squad in place here. What we need is someone to meld it all together. And the best manager in the world at the time just becomes available in what, for Milan fans, can only be described as an absolutely wonderful moment of synchronicity.
Adam, I misspoke. We do have another last 16 game. Two of your favourites, Real Madrid and Bayern. Again, two teams who have been playing a lot recently. You've rolled your eyes, but this is... it's a fun knockout tie. It's everything you want the Champions League to be. I suppose you've got royalty like Raul getting a couple. Lucio, we talked about before, very underrated as an impactful attacking defender, always gets his name in the goals. And Van Nistelrooy, who's now in Madrid, giving them that cushion again. It looks like it's going to be quite the cushion, but Mark van Bommel with a brilliant strike near the end brings the tie right back into the mix. And Roy Mackay scores what was then, and it may still be, the quickest Champions League goal in history in Munich, because it's effectively from kickoff. If there's a clip out there in Spanish, so let's say people with a Madrid bias or sympathy.
He still holds that record, 10 points.
Still, yeah, it was like 100 meters. But the Madrid commentators are building this up. This is two huge clubs. Madrid have got the advantage. Here we go. Oh, for fuck! He's just sneaked in, and that kind of killed that tie. But Bayern needed, I think, a punch back at Madrid.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, it's an entertaining Bayern team at this point. Madrid with Van Nistelrooy and Higuain up front, not exactly the most dynamic at this stage. I think Van Nistelrooy obviously was, but even at this point, it's funny to think. I'm not sure I thought Van Nistelrooy was only 30 when he left Old Trafford. He felt a lot older than that, but he appeared relatively late and scored a lot of goals and put a lot of miles in the clock. But I don't know, I'd have put him at maybe 33 or something when he left, just in my head. But safe to say they're not the most dynamic around. But this time, I really enjoyed this game. Capello is there as well. Capello against Hitzfeld is a proper 90s battle. And there is the two coaches. This was a really good couple of games. I remember the Roy Mackay goal. I don't actually think I'd even sat down at that point when I was watching the game. It was one of those, I'm like, right, I'll go and get a drink and I'll go and do this. Now you can hear the kickoff going before you sit down, and it's a goal and you're like, oh God. But yeah, away goals, I know we've spoke about it in the past, and some people don't like it, some people don't think it was very good. It did change the way that some things work. I don't think we've got necessarily less excitement from it, from getting rid of it. But at the time, I think there was the dynamics of things. I think were probably more interesting at points, because you knew if certain situations happened, then a team were going to struggle to come back. But sometimes you then got a little bit of a surprise coming through as well. So yeah, another one that lots and lots of goals, and the away goals sending Bayern Munich through, which I personally think on the whole was well deserved.
Yeah, Madrid champions of Spain this season, but that's 3 last 16 eliminations in a row. So Europe is becoming something of a problem. I'm sure they'll sort that problem out. Let's stay with Bayern then, because they are drawing against Milan in what looks like probably the biggest quarterfinal of the four. Great game in Milan, David. 2-2 again, back and forward. Pirlo putting Milan ahead. Your man Van Buiten with not just one but two equalisers, one in injury time, deep in injury time after Kaká's penalty. Given the kind of impetus that Bayern have, that Adams mentioned, that Milan might be at the end of something, the body blows that they've suffered lately on and off the pitch, looks like it's a good one for Munich. Of course it is, but Milan win 2-0 at Bayern, goal in each half, I think, but Seedorf and Inzaghi, utter total campaigners, been over the course time and again, loads of medals, and it just kind of fitting that it had to be those two.
Yeah, it's slightly different. It was a quick 1-2. They scored, and then a few minutes later they get the second, and then that shock goes round the stadium that we're going out here, and it takes Bayern about half an hour really to start get back into the game. But you mentioned it there, but Milan at that stage are like, half an hour to see it a 2-goal lead. Yeah, forget it. You're not, we're going through. And there was a sense, and it again, one of the things that fascinates me as we go through this is the psychology of Bayern here being the massive favourites. They've gone there, they've got the draw, which is a good result, but they've got also 2 away goals in their back pocket, and they're pretty comfortable. When the goal goes in, the opening goal from Seedorf, and what a footballer he was, by the way. There's an insight for listeners. Clarence Seedorf, good at football. That doesn't throw them off their stride. The second one does, and it's a classic Inzaghi goal. Just terrific. Spots it, times it, finishes it. And Bayern just. There is that period of readjustment where it's like a punch, isn't it? It's like a boxer that takes a punch. They don't clear their head for half an hour, and that just gets Milan 30 minutes closer to their end goal. And you're right, this is just a side that have enough players who've been through it, have been over the course. But then, Bayern Munich are a club steeped in this that you sort of expect. They still have guys like Kahn, they still have guys like Scholl that have been there and done it as well. It's just a classic away European performance, Martin. It's go there, get your goals and shut up shop, and that's what they do. They do it absolutely perfectly, and in the end they're comfortable.
Adam, another one where it looks after the first leg as if the away team first holds all the cards, is Chelsea and Valencia. 1-1 at Stamford Bridge, and indeed 1-0 to Valencia in the Mestalla. Huge chance to make it 2, not taken. Chelsea come back. I think there's a Drogba shot that falls nicely to Shevchenko. He tucks it away from close range, and then it's Michael Essien squeezing one in at the death. Again, the narrative is tough Chelsea side, know how to get it done, move forward, but again, perhaps signs that the wheels may be coming off this sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's a fine line between that's what champions do versus you can't really rely on that every single week. Terrific goal from was it Silva at Stamford Bridge?
Again, he's really, really making a name by now.
He is. This is him. This is us getting to this point, which I really liked. We are starting to see these kind of what would have been wingers and our wingers still at this point, but your guys like David Silva, Juan Mata, Cazorla coming to the fore in a couple of years, kind of floaty, wide attackers, with the change in tactics now to basically get rid of wingers. These guys are starting to move infield a little bit, and he scores a lovely goal on that left-hand side. He does. Very scrappy games, I think, these ones. It's safe to say. The Essien goal late on is a really nice goal. But yeah, I think it is that. It's at this point, without the context of what is happening, I think if I could remember what my feelings were at the time, it would be one of these. You're like, let's go they're getting through it. Every game's a cup final, all that sort of stuff. We're building and we're building, and you just want to get through it. It's knockout football. That is what you want to do. But yeah, when you think about how things are going for them in the league, although they're still doing okay in the FA Cup as well, it's just one of those things, isn't it? You're trying to get through, but really, when you come up against a team that is maybe more on form than you, or got more players that are suited to what you're trying to do, or less unrest, then you're potentially going to come unstuck, as we see in the next round. But yeah, good win. Two teams that we have covered very, very frequently over the last few years. And yeah, it's good to see some new players coming through at those teams that we'll be able to talk about for the next few years.
Mm-hmm. David, Liverpool draw PSV Eindhoven. The first leg is away. Again, PSV have knocked out Arsenal. They look dangerous. Liverpool have knocked out Barcelona, of course, but are they as fluent as they could possibly? Well, yes, would be the answer. A very convincing, very authoritative 3-0 win in Holland. They win 1-0 at Anfield. But this must be on top of the win in the new camp and all that, the real release that, hey, this could be us again,
Definitely. They are, so comfortable here. Do they have better individuals than Arsenal? No, they don't. But they do finish above them in the league, which probably says something this year. Although both qualify for the Champions League. But they treat these games, Martyn, properly. They are a side who can shift between expectation and being second favourites or favourites. Because, against Barcelona, I think most people expected Barcelona to beat them over two legs. I don't think that's unfair. Here, everyone expected Liverpool to win. But I think that the fact that PSV had knocked out Arsenal maybe does guard against complacency for you, because you know what you've got to do. But the performance in Eindhoven is superb. They just look like a bigger, better side. They look stronger, they look fitter, they look faster. They totally negate everything PSV want to do from an attacking sense. And they play some fluent, good football going forward. But you're absolutely right. Whenever Liverpool FC get into this stage of a Champions League, they believe they can win it because history tells them they can. But this was probably the only one out of the whole batch of quarterfinals that was just a complete and utter be gone. Right, we belong on this stage and you have run your race. And at this point, yeah, I think Liverpool did start to believe. I personally didn't see it myself, but they've just swatted aside a team who've been very decent in the competition all season, have beaten Arsenal in the previous round. And let's not forget the winner 2 seasons before. So, yeah, I think that they were looking pretty good. And we spoke last week about Mascherano, comes in January, and the difference is enormous.
Sure is. Right. Our last quarter-final.
Yes.
AS Roma against Manchester United. Roma win 2-1 in the Eternal City. There is massive trouble in the Manchester United end. I think the police are only guarding one side of it. When Roma score, there's missiles and everything getting thrown in. There's already been trouble, I think, outside the ground. United fans respond, and then the beatings are just indiscriminate. So there's a lot of tension already in the air from that night. United going into the return leg now, 5 times in European Cup history, Manchester United have lost the first leg away from home, and they have never overcome that disadvantage.
That's surprising, isn't it?
They're without Saha, they're without Scholes. United fans going into this are wary, they're nervous, they don't have all the belief, but the atmosphere is supercharged, I think, due to events off the pitch. Alan Smith gets drafted in to play up front. Alan Smith has arguably never been the same player after that injury at Anfield, but he's back in, and United are ridiculous. Michael Carrick scores a goal that's just kind of lifts the ball. It's what 11th minute. it has no backlift, but seems to power into the top corner. And after that, the place is just jumping. I mean, how many goals? 3 goals in 8 minutes, 7-8 minutes?
3 goals
Smith,
by the 11 to 20, and then just to cap it off, just if anyone was getting bored. Martyn, there are certain matches I've watched over the years, right? And I remember going specifically, I remember going to a bar to watch this game where you feel like you've witnessed an assault, and that's what this was. Because and this sounds so stupid, but I have to point out, Totti almost opens the scoring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the opening 10 minutes, Totti has a great chance, and he's unlucky. He doesn't score, and you're thinking, wow, you know, both teams are going for it. It's going to be a great game, and it's done by 20 minutes.
Adam, you mentioned earlier that Roma have been very good, but they save up their kind of bad performance. Were they, or did they just get utterly blown away by a noise and a wave that was just unstoppable? 7-1, of course, in the
end. They were bad. They were. I think when I was researching Spalletti, Roma for their show, there was I came across an article which obviously was describing how they play in midfield, and what they mentioned in midfield was it could be organised chaos at times. I think when you look at some of these goals and you look at the positioning of the midfielders, I think the organised part is doing a lot of heavy lifting, and this one it was chaotic. There was so many holes that United did everything that they didn't do in the first leg. Watching back bits of the first leg, Wes Brown and I think it was Ferdinand didn't really know what to do with this Totti situation, with him dropping deep and all that sort of stuff, because we hadn't seen it at all. They looked just a bit discombobulated by it, very hesitant on the ball, just not quite sure what they're supposed to do. Spalletti just had to come and defend that lead. Just do what they'd done. Sit back, eke that out. Maybe catch something on the break if you could with Mancini's pace, or Vucinic from a set piece or something like that. But I think he just came and was a little bit open. I think he came to try and bury it, maybe to try and dampen the crowd. Like David said, if that goal goes in, who knows? Maybe that would be the game plan. But it just goes chaos. If we're being kind to Roma, there's a lot of goals. If I've got my XG hat on, there's a lot of United goals that just flies in. It's remarkable that 3 or 4 of them fantastic hits as well, but some of them are
especially the
not going in.
I just don't know that's on until it's in the top corner.
Exactly.
Best
there's
goal
also, I think there's an argument for me that, as weird as it sounds, De Rossi's goal is probably the best of the lot, because it's
easily what a cross from Totti and almost back heeled into the corner at a pace. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I've watched it back about 10 times now. I'm not quite sure. Is there potentially a no-look kick? He kind of turns away a little bit.
He doesn't care about that point, obviously.
No, he just wants to hit it anywhere, but it just goes in. It goes in the net, and I don't even think he does celebrate. He's embarrassed to celebrate. But yeah, just an interesting quirk in a game. It's one of those games that I would just love to have been at, where it's a great performance. Everything you touch turns to gold, and the opposition are equally as bad as you are good. We don't get too many of them as a Rangers fan in Europe, but great game, and well deserved for United. They are flying at this point. We're very much firmly in Fergie's, for me, third great team. We're very much in the start of it. I think maybe in the second season or so, but yeah, definitely right in the midst of it. Yeah,
we can talk about that next week. It's just one of those quirks of football when you just know there's just momentum. I don't think there's anything a team can do sometimes with that. Old Trafford's just absolutely bouncing. Cristiano Ronaldo's first Champions League goal that evening, Champions League proper. He scored in a preliminary round game. Had never scored in the Champions League before that night. He scored 2. So we're entering an era, gentlemen, that's going to be marked and dominated by 2 individual players. We haven't been in an era, arguably, since Maradona, where that's the case. And I wonder if life before Ronaldo and Messi, the years that we've just covered on this show, are underrated because of that shadow, have far more concentration of power and ability and talent, variety, and maybe doesn't get the love. I think that is typified, I think, by this Milan team that we're going to speak again about next week, just coming to the end of that particular run, that the whole football unconscious is just going to get ripped apart by two individuals as we move on. Much to talk about next week. Thank you, David.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Until next time, bye for now. If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for And It's Live Podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts and breakdowns dropping every other day.